Hey everybody, Stonesey here from Rockfiend. I'm with Bayley in Glasgow. How's it going, Blaze?
Good, good. It's one of my favourite venues, and we come here on every tour to Ivory Blacks. I've known Kelvin Cook for many, many years. We've worked together, and since he took over this place, and when he was just a promoter. So he's independent, I'm independent, and we've worked together on many, many tours. I think almost every tour has come to Ivory Blacks, and I don't really play anywhere else in Glasgow as plays Bayley. So it's somewhere that I really enjoy coming to. It's always a good sound. It takes care of the equipment, and fans are always treated well. So it's somewhere that I really look forward to coming to, and I enjoy coming here.
I was here last year at your show, and it was an awesome show, but I noticed tonight when we were having a chat before we started the interview, you knew where all the takeaways were around here. You knew where the food was, you knew where the good food was.
I've been here many times, so and there's a rock pub over the road as well, so yes, I've been here many times, but it's not the safest place at all, this part of town. I went and got myself, it used to be an Indian takeaway next door to the venue, and I went and got myself a madras and rice, and I put it down on the table, and this was after the show, and I was having a drink with a couple of fans, and I come back from the toilet, I was disappeared. They took my bleeding curry. Oh yeah, man, rough as anything, this place. Rough as anything.
It just proves that Glasgow is the city of culture.
They took the curry off the table.
Amazing. So let's rewind. Here at Rockfiend, we haven't spoken to you before, and this is a great honour for us, so thank you. And I suppose going way back to the beginning, back to the 80s, which we'll remember fondly, or can't remember fondly actually in some cases, but how did it start for you?
Well, I saw Ronnie James Dio sing at Birmingham Odeon, and in those days, rock and metal, there were no stadium gigs. They were all theatres and converted cinemas and things like this. So when you went to see people who were at the top of rock and metal, you saw them in front of 1,000, 1,800, 3,000 people maximum. Or occasionally a festival. But I think Iron Maiden held the record at Hammersmith Odeon, which is, I think even Hammersmith is like 3,000 people, and they did 7 nights in a row or 8 nights in a row, and that was a record till Riverdance took an occupancy there. Wow. You know what I mean? So in those days, Birmingham Odeon, I think it's only 1,800 people, something like this, and every big band would play it. There just were no stadium gigs at that time, and your biggest thing you would do was be an arena that would be about 12,000, and you'd have to be really huge to do that, and have a lot of confidence, so it was a great time. And I saw Ronnie James Dio in Birmingham Odeon. I saw loads of people there, Metallica, Bon Jovi, loads and loads of people are there. And when I saw Ronnie James Dio sing Children of the Sea, it was a moment that changed my life. And I was on the night shift that night. I got back to work, and I thought, what do I want to be doing with the rest of my life? I can do anything, absolutely anything. I'm a young man, I can do anything I want. Well, if I could do anything that I wanted, I'd be a singer in a rock band and I'd tour the world, like Ronnie James Dio. And that was the seed then, and the rest of my life has followed that thought, that dream, really, that began. The seed of that dream began in Birmingham Odeon when I watched Ronnie James Dio, and of course I watched a lot of other bands that I wanted to emulate and other frontmen, but it was that really, and I fell in love with rock and metal, as many of us did in the 80s. It was the most popular music, and that was it. And I started writing songs, bits of poems and things like this, and there was a small baby grand piano where I worked, because I was the night porter in a hotel checking guests in, which is weird, because now I check into hotels really late, and I'm looking at the guy or the the person on the desk kind of going, I used to do your job. And a long time ago, but yeah, a total empathy, man. You'll never see me trash your hotel room because I know what it feels like to clean them up. So, and I started writing my first couple of songs and messing around with the piano. And in the Tamworth Herald, I lived in Tamworth with my father at that time. We had a fantastic music page, and not just a section, but a full page, one full page, just covering local bands and a few national things going on. And there was a little advert in there that said heavy metal singer required, no experience necessary. I thought, yeah, that's me then. And that was Wolfsbane, and when we were all, none of us were any good really, but we were all very committed to being in a band, and basically from the start we just stuck together. We were never good enough to get into anybody else's band. People used to move around bands, go, oh, they've got a bit better equipment, they've got a better PA or better amps. They've got something. We had nothing. We had 6-watt amps that we put on the sideboard to make them sound a bit louder. But we just stuck together, our dream formulated, and that was it. And our goal then was to be the biggest band in Tamworth. And we stuck together, and our first gig was sold out. And we did become the biggest. There was 20 bands in Tamworth at that time. From hideous average pop to experimental and progressive and us crazy kind of glam metal thing. So it was a vibrant scene, and everybody used to go and see everybody else's band, no matter what kind of music it was. That was very, very cool. Yeah. And then we wanted to be the biggest rock band in Birmingham, and we managed to do that. We managed to become the biggest rock band in Birmingham, and then we started trying to get gigs in London and support slots, just the same as everybody does now. And we were lucky enough to get support slot at the Marquee, and they liked us, the old Marquee in Wardour Street, same place as where UFO, Stones played there, everybody. That the legendary place, which sadly is no more. And that was it. We played there, I think, 7 times, supporting people before we did our first headline show. And we supported King Diamond at our agent got us this support slot, King Diamond, at Hammersmith Odeon. And he's just such a wonderful, wonderful person, King Diamond, just a great guy. And a huge talent, as a writer and vocally, he's incredible. So we supported King Diamond, and a review of us supporting King Diamond was in Kerrang on page 2 of Kerrang, right next to a Slayer review. And the guy that ran the record label for Slayer and produced the albums read this little review of us up while he was looking at the Slayer review. He saw this picture of us and read it, and then he got in touch with us. It just really bizarre from a little review in Kerrang. And we started talking to, and that was Rick Rubin, who did Beastie Boys and like everybody since, he's done Metallica, AC/DC and all of that. Since he worked with me, obviously, he's learned a lot. And that was it. That was the start, really. So we went to Los Angeles, recorded our first album, and then the next album we recorded at Abbey Road Studios in London. No, the next album was the Cathy Wilson album when we supported Iron Maiden. And that was done at the Roundhouse Studios in Camden. Then the next album, the full album, was done in Abbey Road Studios in London, Downfall of Good Guys album. Yeah. And
did you ever stop and take a breath?
Well, it didn't really happen for us because we were on the end of rock and metal just as grunge was coming in. And what we wanted to do, and I'm still convinced that this is right because this is what I do now, we just wanted to either live on a tour bus or take our van around Europe. We'd been all around the UK, and the best success we had was when we did everything ourselves and went and just in our van and played gigs and sold our demos and all of that. So that's what we wanted to do. But the record company at that time, it was all about sticking a video on MTV and trying to catch the fashion, trying to catch the wave and all of that. Well, that wasn't us. We were a real band playing really gutsy kind of a kind of Motorhead glam rock and roll
authentic
thing. That's who we were. We weren't really trying to be MTV stars. We just wanted to be a band on tour as we had been when we'd started. And but that side of the industry is that's different. That's different, and you know, it just didn't work out for us really. We did get a certain amount of notoriety. We had loads of magazine covers and all of this, and we did sell a few records, but we never had that big tour of Europe where we could just go around and create and get our own fans and say, look, this is what we do. We had a couple of little support slots, and we always got good feedback from that, but that's all we had really. So even though we had a lot of notoriety, we were really only big-ish in the UK. We were a bit known in America because we had an American label, but not really very much. So we were always a kind of underground band in a way, but we were like the biggest, most famous underground band that you could get. So that's how it worked for us really. And we kept going and going, and we supported Iron Maiden on 31 sold-out shows, I think it was, of the UK. And we had the Cathy Wilson album, which was an EP, and we wanted to go and do a tour after that. We played to thousands of Maiden fans. We got encore almost every night, and we thought, well, let's go and do our own tour now and show people what a headline show is from Wolfsbane. And sadly, that just did not happen. They wanted us to go and make an album, and it was just, you know, it's just like a domino effect, really. And anyway, years later, Maiden were holding auditions for the new singer, and so I thought, well, I'll have a go for it, and I did, and I was very, very surprised. I mean, I think they had like thousands. I think they had 1,500 demos that they listened to, and then there were like the 12 disciples that were chosen for the audition. Right. And I was lucky; I was one of those 12. Wow. You know, you went to the studio to sing live. You had to, you know, there was 10 songs that were in the set at the time, and 10 of the classics that you had to learn. And I went and I'd done my best, and I was very, very surprised that they chose me to be the singer, because my voice is so different to Bruce. We did look a little bit alike. That was, you know, but my voice was radically different. But I think what it was, they wanted a change, and the albums that I did, the X Factor and Virtual 11, that was the real start of the progressive era of Iron Maiden. And I learned so much about songwriting and about my voice. And I found this other part of my voice that that was just hidden, really, before. And it was an incredible experience. And the music that we came up with was just fantastic, I think. And they said at the start, there's nothing written for these albums. So it doesn't matter who writes it, it just has to be great. Yeah. And that was it. So you go to rehearsals and talk about your idea, and maybe that's not so good. Oh yeah, that's really good. And if it was good, it went on the album, and it didn't matter. You know, so I had a few songs on the album, and Man on the Edge was something that I co-wrote with Yannick Gers, and that went top 10 around the world in the rock charts. It's a fantastic, absolutely fantastic thing with a big video and everything. It was unbelievable.
So you reached, or you gained the opportunity that just didn't manage to get the Wolfsbane with Maiden then. So, you know, taking yourself on the road and then going around the world.
Yeah, I mean, what was fantastic that I think was to know that you were going to be on tour for 9 months. I think they were all fed up of it by then. But for me, it's like, 9 months on tour, that's what I've always wanted, just to be away.
Or were you available? Or were you?
Yeah, so it was good. You know, it was nice to do that and know that you were going to have a big tour.
You spoke about, you know, unlocking your voice.
Yeah.
I mean, the resilience in your voice must be something that's really important when you're going on such a long tour. I mean, 9 months.
Yeah, it's just tough.
Yeah.
It's just tough. It's not rock and roll. That's the thing. This phrase gets misused and abused, and many people think of rock and roll as cocaine, whiskey, cigarettes, stopping up all night, and then performing like a god. That's not going to happen. No. And it's more like being one of the Knights Templar or some kind of monk or something. Because when you're on a tough schedule, you can't speak. Yeah. In a day, everything has to be safe for that gig, and those 2 or 3 hours become the complete focus of not just the day, but your whole life is geared towards only singing, only talking, only vocalising during that time to make sure that you can do it, because the schedules are so tough, and it was tough. But I think my favourite analogy is football, in that you could play for a Sunday League team, or you can play for a Premiership team, or you can play for your country. So it's exactly the same game with the same rules, but the intensity is vastly different. And that's what it was. When I was in Maiden, then that wasn't like the Premiership. That was like playing for England every night, and you're expected to win.
Yeah.
There's no missing a penalty. That's it, man. So that was it. I wasn't really prepared for that level of intensity. You were just to it.
Yeah.
But the amount of interviews and all of this, because you're the new person, that's the thing that people want to talk about. It was madness. Yeah. Absolutely madness.
Wow. So fast forward, we're in Glasgow tonight. So you're Blaze Bayley now. You've always been Blaze Bayley, of course. Now, tell us about the band, because I saw them last year. Fantastic. Tell us about the guys.
Well, now I don't have my own band. Now I'm completely independent, and I produce my own albums. I got my own record company. It's tiny. It's just me on it. And what I've been doing is trying to be independent after I went mad and almost had a complete breakdown. The stress of trying to keep a band together is just so much, man. Yeah. Especially when you're playing this kind of music. If you don't have big record sales, if you don't have big money coming in and big gig fees, how can you keep a band together? So I was more or less given up, and I was in Manchester at a gig called Grand Central, and I was doing an acoustic gig, and at that time I was doing some acoustic gigs and just doing appearances with different bands and a lot of guest vocal stuff. And Chris Appleton, who is the guitarist with the Absolver band, who's my exclusive backing band, he said to me, if you ever want to try again with heavy metal, I'd love to come on that journey with you. And he had a lot of confidence. He really thought that I could go back to metal and that it could happen. We could make something out of it. We could do something. And anyway, my manager at that time had the idea to do a greatest hits tour called Soundtracks of My Life, where I thought, well, one thing, I've done a lot of albums, but people often say, well, I don't know which one to get. So I thought, I'll do a greatest hits for new fans that I'm getting and all of that. Anyway, Chris put the band together for me and got rehearsed and everything, and he came and he did the tour with the guys, and it was really good. And then we had the idea to do the Silicon Messiah 15th anniversary, because what happened after Maiden was I did this album, which I was so proud of, sounds absolutely great, called Silicon Messiah, but the management I had at the time didn't book one single show to promote the album when it was released. Not one. Okay. So, which is unbelievable, really, in the scheme of like normal rock music. So Chris said, "Oh, let's try this. Let's try this Silicon Messiah, let's do 15th anniversary of Silicon Messiah. And he booked himself, I think, 35 shows all over Europe. And and we played every song off the album, and that was the Silicon Messiah tour.
Yeah.
And nothing could stop us. It's like, this is it. 15 years later, now I get the tour that I always wanted, and it was absolutely great. And then we kind of had the confidence that we worked together on that, and things went well. To say, why don't we try some writing, and see how it goes, and we did, and that was the start really of the trilogy, of the Entanglement trilogy. Worked with a few different people, and then as Chris and I started working closer together, I was the producer at the beginning, then we kind of split the duties of the producer, where I'm more in the overall arrangements of the song, and then Chris is more from the arrangements into the details of how to actually get things recorded and the precise sounds that you want, put them together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
sounds like an awesome partnership.
It's been good. I think it's been terrible for him. Because I'm awful to work with. I'm just not a pleasant person at all to work with. There's no easy way to say it. I'm just very direct and horrible most of the time. No, I don't want it. Move on. I don't like it. It doesn't matter. It can take hours. Could be hours of work. No, don't want it. No. And so I think it's worse for him than it is for me. But he just does a fantastic job. Yeah. And so we've made a trilogy. What I said was, this is not one album, because I think we had 16 tracks at the time. And I said, what I can feel is this is 3 albums. It's a beginning, a journey, and an end. Yeah. And what I want to do is record 3 albums, and I want to release each one on or around the 1st of March and tour with each one in the spring. And that way, I'm going to be able to keep up the momentum of the trilogy and not have this flaky thing of, when I feel it's ready. I'm a working class man. I like a deadline, and I like a time to know when I start, a time to know when I'm finished. Yeah. And we did it like that, and we set it up, and it was a huge amount of work. Yeah. And it got more and more pressure towards the 3rd one, and because we were getting more and more tour dates, it was becoming less time to record. But we actually managed to do it. We did the 3 albums in 3 years, each one released on or around the 1st of March, and it's called the Infinite Entanglement Trilogy. Yeah. It's 3 records with 1 story about a man called William Black. And fans have loved it. And for me, it's the greatest thing I've ever done, the greatest work in my life. So it's something I'm very, very proud of. And now we're on tour here. We've toured with each album, but there are 32 songs. It's a number that is part of what this trilogy is about, because it's science fiction and the way that things divide up. So there were some really big and important songs that we just hadn't had a chance to play. Okay. So the Eagle Spirit Tour highlights the fact that the eagle is the spirit animal that William Black goes to, and the big songs that we didn't do before, because for one reason or another they didn't quite fit in. And it's a very different set list. So fans who've come and seen this set list, it's almost all Blaze Bayley and just 1 or 2 bits of Iron Maiden. Yeah. And many fans who've followed me for years have said this is their favourite set list. Wow. Which is incredible.
Yeah. That work ethic is really interesting, because I looked at your tour dates this year. There's not many bands doing those amount of dates, please.
Well, I'm just very lucky, I have a fantastic team around me. I have a great manager now, and I have a great booker. Chris does a lot of the booking. He's actually on tour, meets the promoters and meets people at venues and gets the tour booked. So I'm very, very lucky to be in that situation. But it's not an accident. It's a lot of hard work from people that take it very, very seriously and support me and believe in the project. So I'm very lucky to have that. And it's, you know, sometimes it's a huge amount of fun, and sometimes it is, this is a challenge because there's so much to do. But I always think I'm lucky, and I always think about those days going right back to Wolfsbane when all we wanted to do was be in a van or live on a tour bus, and we never had that opportunity. We never had those opportunities once we signed to a record label. Yeah. And now the world has turned, and I'm completely independent. I'm not crowd funded or pledge funded. I'm fan funded. My fans buy my albums, and that's the money that I use to make the next album. Yeah. So I'm very lucky to be in that situation. And there are thousands of musicians who would love to have a tour like mine. Yeah. And I would love to be able to make records, but they just don't have those opportunities. It's really difficult to do that. So I think I'm very, very lucky to be in that situation.
Well, I'm so glad that you shared that with us. You know, it's not just luck. You know, there's a bit of luck in there, but that hard work is really interesting. Blaze Bayley, a master of his own destiny, I suppose, and we'll be touring right across the world actually this year. You know, you're going to be in America.
Yeah, we're going Canada. To USA, Canada. We've already been to South America. Yeah, and we're going to Spain. I think we're going back to France and Germany as well. I think we're going to Scandinavia. Oh yeah, we've got a big festival called Sweden Rock Festival this year. So yeah, there's lots of things going on for us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for talking to us at Rockfiend. Blaze's website is awesome. It's bang up to date. It has all the dates on there, so catch them. You know, you've heard it from the man himself, exactly what this tour is all about. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Blaze, and we really look forward to the show today.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks, buddy.